And so, Caterina, how did you meet James?
Well, first time I saw him, I thought he was super cute. Very. And I was actually his daughter's after-school teacher. So, yeah.
And so, James, did you think the same thing about Caterina? Super cute?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So, you started dating. Obviously, one thing led to another, and Caterina wound up in what we call a crisis pregnancy. So, Caterina, how'd you react to finding out that you were pregnant?
I was super excited at first because I've always wanted to be a mother and a wife, and I prayed that my whole entire life, that I didn't know that God was going to give me that so fast. And I was super afraid at the same time, and I knew that fear came from the enemy, but my first reaction was, unfortunately, abortion.
Okay, so immediately you were happy,
Yes.
and then you said, I have to have an abortion. And what was your goal with that abortion?
The goal was to make it all go away, and the reason why I wanted to go away was because I feel like I failed the Lord 100% because I knew about purity. And when I found out I was pregnant, I was not married. And I feel like everything that I was taught and learned and went through church and ministry with, that I totally just disappointed God. And I knew in my head that I know He's going to forgive me, but I don't think that I would be able to forgive myself for it. And I knew He was a forgiving Father, but I was still just in shock, and I was afraid of what it would be like to be a single mother, because I, barely knew him at the time, James, and I just didn't want to go through what I went through as a child growing up. It was just my mom and I. And I was afraid that my child was not going to have what he needed or she needed. So I just rather not have a child than have the child suffering here.
And so, just so you know, everyone in the audience, this is extremely common. Women often feel, even women who choose abortion, they feel very conflicted. She was happy, and then she said, too bad I can't have it. And I can't think of anything more tragic than a woman who wants to have a child feeling like the answer is to take its life. So, James, how did you react when Caterina told you she was pregnant and wanted an abortion?
Well, I pleaded with her a lot not to. I don't believe in abortion. When she actually called me one day when I was at work and told me that she made an appointment because she seemed like she was in a rush, and I knew that wasn't something that she truly wanted to do in her heart. And I told myself I get real choked up at this part, but when she told me she made an appointment, I dropped on my knees at work and I was sobbing.
You guys may not know this either about abortion, but the Supreme Court in 2 separate cases has stripped all rights from fathers when it comes to abortion. Even if the father wants to have the child, even if the father is a capable parent, even if they're married, it is literally a woman's right to choose, and a father has no ability to restrict a woman from having an abortion. So, Caterina, what did you do when you decided to have that abortion? What was your next step?
Well, the first things first, I told my mom, and I was hysterically crying. I was afraid to tell anybody else because I was afraid of what they were going to think about me. And so the next day, I had to go to school. And before class started, I called and I was researching abortion clinics. And the first one that popped up was West Palm Beach. So I called, and they told me that I was too early. I was only 5 weeks, and I needed to at least be 10 weeks to do the procedure or the pill, whatever I was going to choose to do. So I was very desperate, and I just wanted it to be over. I just didn't want to put too much thought into it because I was afraid that if I did, I wouldn't have gone through with it. So I kept looking, and I came across First Care on the website, and it was talking about abortions and different things, so I assumed that they did procedures, so I just called. Not thinking the name was First Care. So I was desperate, and I was like, hey, I actually spoke to Carolyn. She's not here, but she's an angel from the Lord. And she said, hi, sweetie, how are you? I'm like, hi. I'm like, do you do abortion procedures? She's like, no, we don't do that here, honey. Well, would you like to come in for a free pregnancy test? I was like, no, I'm okay, thank you. I already had taken 5 at home and was still in denial. So after that, I left class and I was on my way to work. I got into a little fender bender. It's crazy how God works. So then I couldn't go to work. And then I called James and told him what happened. So he came to the scene, and I'm like, well, since I can't go to work, I might as well try First Care and see if I'm actually pregnant. And I went, and then Carolyn greeted me, and she brought me into a room. And
So when you came to First Care, so if you hadn't been in the car accident, you think you would have ever come to First Care?
no, absolutely not. That was definitely God intervening, because he knew I did not want to do that. 100%.
So don't drive
Yeah.
safely.
Yeah, that was definitely God.
So tell us a little bit about that visit to First Care. They gave you a pregnancy test?
Yeah, well, before that, Carolyn invited me into a room, and I had no idea it was a Christian place whatsoever. She was just talking to me about the Lord, and I was kind of shocked. I'm like, okay, I was putting the pieces together. I'm like, okay, this must be like a Christian place. In my head, I'm like, thank God. So she was talking to me, and one thing that stood out to me the most, she told me, she goes, Caterina, sometimes your plan is not always God's plan. And in my head, I always pictured to be married first. I wanted to have that beautiful wedding. I wanted to, a part of that not only is because I wanted to be in a beautiful dress, but I just wanted that to be a part of accomplishment that I made in life. Knowing that, I didn't have to be the product of my past, and I didn't have to be that percentage of a child with a divorce rate. And so that was one thing that, she told me, and I'm like, okay, Lord, obviously you have something better for me. And a part of that is why I'm sitting here today, and I do believe that's part of his plan. But I was just very ashamed, extremely ashamed, and I was just hysterical. And then the nurse came in, and she told me, Caterina, you're pregnant. I'm like, wow, what a surprise. So, yeah. So, and one thing, I think it's Nurse Sharon, is it? Which I love that woman as well. Ultimately, why I wanted to keep Myron is what she said that touched me the most. She said, honey, I had an abortion when I was your age. And now I have 4 kids, and when they stand next to each other, I always notice that there is one missing. And when she said that, I just knew that there's no way I could live the rest of my life knowing that I killed my child. And I know that's a very hard thing to say, but that is the truth. I am killing my child. So I just didn't want to live with that. I knew that it would never really go away. And people think it's going to go away, but that's just false. And knowing how I am, I would be severely depressed for the rest of my life. And I would always be wondering who he or she could have been, what their accomplishments would have been, how God would have used them. I would have never forgiven myself.
And so I can't remember if you had an ultrasound that day or you came back a couple of weeks later for an ultrasound.
I came back a few weeks after.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so what'd you see on the ultrasound screen?
My little baby. I saw a little thing, but I saw the heartbeat, and I knew that I was going to make the best decision of my life. So I was definitely super nervous, but I was super excited because I knew that this was, my dream come true was to become a mother, and it was happening right in front of my eyes.
And so, James, you came with her a day or two later for another ultrasound. Tell us what that was like for you.
It was exciting. I was relieved, definitely, because she was talking about keeping him. And, to see that heartbeat and see it still there was a gift.
Now, when Caterina found out that she was pregnant, she got on a timeline that's extremely common for women in crisis pregnancies. As a matter of fact, the stats show that when a woman is in a crisis pregnancy, when she first suspects that she's pregnant, she will confirm that pregnancy, usually with a home pregnancy test within the first 3 days. If she's going to have an abortion, she'll decide by the end of that day. And then she'll try to be in an abortion clinic within 7 days. So once a woman suspects that she's pregnant till the time she's with the abortionist, it can be as short as 10 days. And that's why it's so important that First Care is open a lot of hours, that we have a lot of available appointments, that we have staff there who can perform ultrasounds, and that we have a really strong online presence. Otherwise, clients won't find us in that moment of crisis, which is exactly when they need us the most.